Have you ever tried to get close to a Capricorn, only to feel like they slowly started pulling away? At first, everything seemed fine. You were laughing, vibing, maybe even building something meaningful. And then out of nowhere, they turn cold. They stop responding the same way, become distant, or just seem done. No fight, no drama, just silence. Here's the truth. Capricorns rarely explode. They don't like confrontation, and they definitely won't cause a scene. But when you cross certain invisible lines, they shut down. Not out of spite, but out of self-protection. They've got a mental list of things they simply won't tolerate. And once you hit enough of those triggers, you're out, quietly, completely. Capricorns are often misunderstood. People see them as too serious, too practical, too focused. But beneath that grounded surface, they're deeply emotional. They just don't hand those emotions out lightly. They're constantly measuring who respects their time, their values, and their boundaries. Not in a judgy way, but in a who's really safe to let in kind of way. So when someone crosses the line, even without realizing it, it's not always obvious. They won't always tell you what you did. But there are patterns. There are behaviors that drive Capricorns absolutely insane, even if they don't show it right away. That's what this video is about. Whether you're trying to understand the Capricorn in your life, or you're a Capricorn tired of explaining yourself, we're breaking down the 12 things that push this sign to the edge, starting with 2 habits that might seem harmless, but will make any Capricorn want to walk away without looking back. Let's get into it. Let's start with reason number 1, wasting a Capricorn's time. If there's one thing you never want to do with a Capricorn, it's waste their time. Seriously, you might think you're just being casual. Maybe you're running a little late, or you cancel a plan last minute, or you show up unprepared for something they scheduled. To you, it might feel harmless, but to a Capricorn, that's almost personal. Capricorns live by clocks, calendars, checklists, and long-term goals. That's not an exaggeration. It's how they're wired. Their time is something they've planned, organized, and committed to. So when someone disrespects that time, even a little, it sends a very clear message. I don't take your priorities seriously. Now don't get it twisted. They get that life happens. Emergencies, delays, a bad day. Capricorns can be understanding. But there's a difference between something unavoidable and a pattern of carelessness. If you're consistently late, disorganized, flaky, or just act like their time doesn't matter, they notice and they keep score, even if they don't say a word. This gets even deeper when you understand how Capricorns see their place in the world. They often feel like they have to earn everything: respect, success, trust. So when they give you their time, it's a big deal. They had to carve it out of a packed schedule, push aside something important, or say no to themselves to say yes to you. If you show up without intention, they feel that disrespect in their bones. It's not just romantic partners or co-workers either. This applies to everyone. Friends, family, teammates. Capricorns gravitate toward people who value time the same way they do, as something sacred. They're drawn to people who come prepared, show up early, get things done, and don't need constant reminders. That's not them being rigid. That's them feeling safe. And here's where it gets real. Capricorns often won't tell you outright that you're wasting their time. They won't yell or start a fight. Instead, they'll withdraw. Slowly, quietly. They'll stop inviting you to things. They'll stop replying as fast. They'll reprioritize. And just like that, you're out of their orbit. No drama, just distance. To them, protecting their time is protecting their energy and ultimately their future. Now, reason number 2, lack of ambition. This one cuts even deeper because it's not just about time, it's about purpose. Capricorns are born with a natural drive. Even when they're not sure what they want, they know they want something. They're always aiming for a next step, a goal, a version of themselves that's better than yesterday. That inner motor never really turns off. So when they're around people who don't have that same fire, it's disorienting. Actually, no, it's frustrating. Capricorns don't judge people for not having everything figured out. But if you don't even care about growth, if you're comfortable floating through life with no goals, no plan, no vision, that's where the disconnect happens. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for people with direction, even if it's a messy, uncertain path. What they can't vibe with is passive energy, the "it is what it is" crowd. The people who wait for things to happen instead of making them happen. That doesn't inspire them. It exhausts them. In relationships, this is a make or break issue. Capricorns want partners they can build with. Someone who dreams big and takes the steps to get there. Someone who understands what sacrifice looks like. If you're just hoping the universe drops success in your lap while you binge watch your life away, they'll quietly check out. Even in friendships, Capricorns crave inspiration. They want to be surrounded by people who challenge them, not drag them backward. You don't need to be rich, famous, or ultra-productive, but you do need to care. Care about your path, care about your future, care about becoming something more. Because here's the thing, Capricorns carry a lot on their shoulders. They take on responsibilities early in life. They often feel pressure to provide, to perform, to stay strong when everyone else crumbles. So when they find someone who's just floating, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like weight. They need people who match their energy, not in personality necessarily, but in purpose. People who want to build, grow, and push themselves. That's what earns their respect. That's what makes them feel like they're not alone in the climb. And the moment they realize someone isn't climbing at all, or worse, pulling them back down, they detach. Again, quietly, without much warning. Capricorns don't always argue. They just leave. They decide, in their own head, this isn't going anywhere. And they act accordingly. You won't always get a final conversation. You'll just feel the shift. It's not coldness, it's clarity. These first two reasons, wasted time and lack of ambition, are enough to make a Capricorn hit the brakes on any connection, fast. But it doesn't stop there. Because if there's one thing Capricorns value just as much as time and purpose, it's responsibility. The next two reasons are rooted in the kind of behavior that makes them question someone's maturity entirely. Let's talk about that. Reason number 3, irresponsibility. Capricorns are not impressed by charm. They don't care if you're funny, smooth, or spontaneous if you can't take care of your basic responsibilities. For a Capricorn, the way someone handles the boring parts of life, bills, promises, deadlines, commitments, says everything. They're not expecting perfection. They know life gets messy, but if you consistently avoid taking accountability, or if everything around you feels like it's held together with duct tape and crossed fingers, they get uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. See, responsibility isn't just a task for Capricorns. It's tied to their sense of security. Many Capricorns grew up too fast. Maybe they had to act like the adult in their family before they even had a chance to be a kid. Maybe they were the fixer, the one who had to hold it together when things were falling apart. That kind of early pressure doesn't leave them. It shapes them. So when they're around someone who constantly drops the ball, emotionally, financially, or even socially, it's more than annoying. It's triggering. It reminds them of every time they had to pick up the pieces when someone else didn't do their part. And they're not trying to live that way anymore. Capricorns are the type to show up even when they don't feel like it. They'll sacrifice sleep, comfort, and personal time just to make sure a promise is kept. And no, they don't expect everyone to match their exact intensity, but they do need to feel like they're not carrying the whole load alone. Irresponsibility shows up in little ways too. Not replying to messages, forgetting important dates, ignoring consequences, making excuses instead of plans, and maybe worst of all, laughing it off as if it doesn't matter. To a Capricorn, that kind of casual carelessness says one thing loud and clear: you can't be counted on. And here's where things take a turn. Capricorns will try to help. They'll offer advice, they'll give chances, they'll step in and support, sometimes more than they should. But if they realize you're just leaning on them instead of stepping up, they'll stop. They'll pull back their energy, their time, and eventually their presence. And just like that, you're watching their back as they walk away. Now let's move to reason number 4, public drama. This one is a sneaky deal breaker because it's not always intentional. Sometimes people think they're just being expressive or funny or passionate, but to a Capricorn, there's a fine line between authentic emotion and unnecessary drama, especially when it plays out in public. Capricorns value composure, not because they're fake or cold, but because they believe in protecting dignity, their own and yours. They're the type to pull you aside if something's wrong, rather than explode in front of a crowd. So when someone brings the fight to the group chat, the dinner table, or the comment section, it's jarring. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to feel like a spectacle. And they definitely don't want their name tied to someone who can't control themselves in public spaces. It makes them anxious. It makes them question your judgment. And it makes them think twice about letting you close. This isn't about image for vanity's sake. It's about respect. Respect for privacy. Respect for each other's emotions. And respect for knowing when and where something should be addressed. If every disagreement turns into a show, or every bad mood turns into a meltdown in front of others, it chips away at the foundation of trust for a Capricorn. And trust me, once that foundation cracks, it's hard to repair. Public drama also triggers something deeper for Capricorns, the fear of chaos. Most Capricorns crave stability, even if they don't always admit it. So when things get loud, messy, or unpredictable in front of other people, they feel like the ground under their feet is shifting. They don't thrive in that energy. They retreat from it. This is especially true in romantic relationships. Capricorns want a partner who makes them feel grounded, not someone who makes every room feel like it's full of tension. If you start yelling in public, picking fights online, or constantly putting them in situations where they have to apologize for you, they'll start emotionally packing their bags. Even in friendships and work settings, they avoid loud drama. They want calm, competent, balanced people in their circle, not wild cards. Because again, that ties back to something core. They need to trust that you'll represent yourself and them with grace when it matters. To some, that might sound too serious, but that's the thing. Capricorns are serious about the people they let close. They have standards for a reason. It's not because they want perfection. It's because they've worked too hard, held themselves together too long, and sacrificed too much to deal with avoidable chaos. And while drama might feel exciting to some people, a way to feel alive or heard or noticed, to a Capricorn, it feels like danger. It feels like risk. And when Capricorns sense risk, they go into self-preservation mode. They distance, they observe, and then they exit. So if you want to stay connected to a Capricorn, understand this. How you behave in public tells them everything they need to know about your emotional control. And your emotional control tells them how safe it is to let you into their inner world. And make no mistake, that inner world, it's sacred, it's quiet, it's stable. It's the one place they don't want to feel like they have to brace themselves for impact. These two reasons, irresponsibility and public drama, touch on something fundamental for Capricorns. The need to feel secure with the people they're closest to. They're not looking for perfect people, but they are looking for reliable ones, predictable in the best way. The kind of people who show up, stay grounded, and handle themselves with maturity, even when emotions run high. But here's the twist. There's another side to Capricorn's sense of structure and control that often gets overlooked. While they expect maturity, they also value discipline, order, and consistency. That's why the next two triggers cut just as deep, and maybe even deeper. They reveal how Capricorns react when someone starts breaking the rules they live by, or promising more than they deliver. Let's talk about it. Which brings us to reason number 5, disrespecting rules or authority. This doesn't mean Capricorns blindly worship every rule or every boss they've ever had. They're perfectly capable of questioning systems, especially if they're broken or unjust. But they believe that in general, rules exist for a reason. They bring clarity, consistency, and security, all things that Capricorns value deeply. So when they meet someone who constantly rebels against structure, ignores boundaries, or acts like they're above consequences, it doesn't impress them. It irritates them, especially when that rebellion comes from ego, not principle. Let's say you're in a group project and someone decides to blow off the guidelines just because they don't feel like it. Or maybe you're working on something together and they constantly push back against any kind of system or authority. Not because it's unjust, but because they just don't want to cooperate. That kind of energy instantly puts Capricorns on edge. To them, it signals recklessness, selfishness, and a lack of discipline. Capricorns know how hard it is to build anything, a career, a relationship, a future, and they know it takes teamwork, structure, and patience. So when someone constantly breaks the rules or disrespects authority just to feel powerful, it feels immature. Worse, it feels unsafe. In their eyes, rules are a form of trust, agreements, unspoken promises to treat each other with mutual respect. When someone breaks those, it's not being edgy, it's being unreliable. And Capricorns don't open up to people they can't rely on. Now let's look at reason number 6, overpromising and underdelivering. This one gets Capricorns in a place that's personal, because if there's one thing they hate, it's talk with no action. Big words, flashy plans, bold declarations with zero follow-through. You know the type, the person who always says, "I've got you," but never shows up. The friend who swears they're going to change, grow, commit, and then disappears when it's time to actually do it. The co-worker who says, "I'll handle it," and then ghosts the entire responsibility. That kind of inconsistency makes Capricorns cringe, not because they're judgmental, but because they take words seriously. If they say they'll do something, they will. Even if it costs them sleep, even if they regret agreeing in the first place, their word is a contract. So when someone casually breaks that contract, whether it's in work, love, or friendship, it cuts deep. It doesn't just disappoint them, it changes how they see you. Here's what most people miss about Capricorns. They remember everything, especially broken promises. They might not bring it up right away, but it stays with them. A mental note, a quiet shift in how much trust they give you going forward. And it's not just about what was said, it's about what was felt. If you got their hopes up, if you made them believe in something and then didn't follow through, it's not just a mistake, it's a violation of something sacred, dependability. Capricorns know life is unpredictable. They don't expect you to be perfect, but they do expect you to be honest about what you can and can't give. If you're unsure, say that. If you're overwhelmed, admit it. What they can't stand is false confidence followed by complete inaction. It feels careless, it feels disrespectful, and it feels like you don't value their time, energy, or emotional investment. This goes double in romantic relationships. When a Capricorn lets you in, they're already imagining the long-term picture. They're thinking about building something, not just surviving day to day. So when their partner makes promises with no real intention of keeping them, it's devastating. Not loud, tearful devastation. Silent, numb, withdrawn. They'll likely give a warning, maybe more than one. But eventually, something snaps. And once it does, they stop believing you. That's when the connection shifts. You'll still see them. They'll still be polite, but emotionally, they've already packed up and moved on. And the hard truth? Once a Capricorn decides they can't trust your word, they'll never fully lean in again. They might forgive, but they'll never forget. And they certainly won't rebuild something on a cracked foundation. What makes this even more intense is how seriously Capricorns take their own promises. They don't say, "I love you," or "I've got your back," lightly. So when they do say those things, they mean them, fully. So when someone else tosses around those same phrases with no follow-through, it cheapens something they hold sacred. Capricorns are about action. Prove it. Show up. Keep showing up. That's how you build with them. That's how you stay in their life. And if you don't, if you fall into a pattern of making promises and breaking them, you might not even realize how much they've pulled back until it's already too late. These two reasons, breaking structure and breaking trust, hit Capricorn right in their foundation. Because for them, life isn't about chaos or charm. It's about building. Slow, steady, meaningful building. And if you want to be part of their world, you have to respect the effort it takes to keep that world standing. But discipline and structure aren't the only things they value. Capricorns also have deeply personal boundaries around emotion. They may not show it on the outside, but inside, they're navigating a complex world of feeling, control, and self-protection. And when that emotional balance is disrupted, especially by people who bring too much noise or not enough drive, things start to unravel fast. Let's talk about what happens when that emotional threshold gets pushed, and why Capricorns sometimes disappear without saying a word. Reason number 7, Emotional overload. Capricorns are often misread as being emotionally distant or even cold. But here's the truth. They feel everything, deeply. They just don't show it the way others might expect. That calm, composed exterior isn't lack of emotion. It's emotional management. It's control. And for a Capricorn, control is survival. Many Capricorns learned early on that showing emotion wasn't always safe. Maybe their feelings were dismissed, mocked, or used against them. So they learned to contain, to compartmentalize, to stay steady, no matter what was going on around them. So when someone brings emotional chaos into their space, unpredictable moods, constant venting, dramatic ups and downs, it throws them off. It's not that they don't care, it's that they can't function in that kind of environment. Emotional overload makes them feel like the ground beneath them is shifting, and Capricorn is a sign that needs stable ground. They want connection. Yes, they want depth, but they need emotional maturity. They need to feel like there's a sense of balance, that feelings are expressed, not dumped, that emotions are shared, not weaponized. When someone uses emotion to manipulate, guilt trip, or dominate the space, Capricorn shuts down fast. Even in close relationships, they'll begin to retreat. They'll smile, nod, offer practical advice, anything to avoid being pulled into the emotional storm. But inside, they're quietly building walls, not because they don't love you, but because they're trying to preserve themselves. They may not say it out loud, but they're thinking, I can't carry this. I can't live like this. I need peace. That's the thing about Capricorns. They don't want to be someone's emotional sponge. They don't want to be the fixer, the rescuer, the therapist. They want partnership, reciprocity. If someone is always in crisis, always needing, always spiraling, a Capricorn will eventually disconnect for their own sanity. And this emotional overload doesn't have to come in the form of yelling or sobbing. Sometimes it's the constant negativity, the inability to self-regulate, the refusal to take personal responsibility for feelings. Capricorns can handle a storm, but they won't let themselves drown in someone else's if that person refuses to learn how to swim. Now, if emotional overload is what drains a Capricorn spirit, then reason number 8 is what drains their drive. And once that drive is gone, so is the connection. Reason number 8, laziness and passivity. Capricorns don't just admire ambition, they need it in the people closest to them. It's part of how they connect. It's how they measure compatibility. It's how they build trust. So when someone shows consistent laziness, or worse, apathy toward their own goals or responsibilities, it feels like an emotional mismatch. Laziness isn't about having a day off or taking a rest. Capricorns know the value of recovery, but there's a huge difference between resting and avoiding. Rest has intention, avoidance has excuses, and Capricorns are allergic to excuses. Picture this. You're constantly talking about your dreams, your ideas, the things you want to do, but you never actually take steps toward them. Or maybe you complain about your job, your habits, your routine, but you never try to change them. That passive energy, that someday talk without any action behind it, slowly makes a Capricorn pull away. Why? Because Capricorns are workers, builders, strivers. They have plans, they stay late, they sacrifice comfort, and they want to be around people who get that mindset, people who want more and are willing to work for it. Laziness makes them feel like they're dragging dead weight, like they're investing in someone who doesn't invest in themselves. And that's where the resentment begins. It shows up in small things too. Maybe you never take initiative. Maybe you're always just seeing how it goes. Maybe you expect them to lead all the time, to plan, decide, fix, move, push, while you stay on the sidelines. Eventually, they get tired, not physically, energetically, tired of being the engine in a two-person vehicle. And it's not just romantic relationships, friendships, business partnerships, even family dynamics. If they feel like they're always the one doing the emotional or practical lifting, they start to shut down. Because deep down, Capricorns believe effort equals respect. When someone tries, really tries, it shows they care. When someone doesn't, it shows the opposite. And once they feel like you've stopped trying, they'll stop offering chances. And here's the thing most people don't see. Capricorns don't complain much. They don't nag. They don't repeat themselves. They just take mental notes. And then one day, when the weight of your passivity has piled up too high, they're just gone. They may still answer your texts. They may still smile when they see you. But the connection, it's gone cold. Because nothing kills a Capricorn's investment faster than realizing they care more about your future than you do. At their core, Capricorns are attracted to effort, not perfection, not results. Just consistent, honest, grounded effort. When they see someone trying genuinely, they'll give everything. Support, encouragement, loyalty, resources. But when they see someone choosing to coast, to wait for life to fix itself, they disengage. They want to build with people who move, who show up, who rise even when it's hard. And this isn't about hustle culture or toxic productivity. Capricorns aren't robots. They rest, they reflect, but they don't quit on themselves. And they can't bond with people who do. When you combine emotional overload with laziness, you create the exact environment that makes a Capricorn shrink. It drains them mentally, spiritually, and physically. It makes them feel like they're stuck in a cycle they can't control. And when a Capricorn feels trapped like that, there's only one way they respond: by getting out. Because at the end of the day, all a Capricorn really wants is peace, purpose, and partnership. If you bring constant emotional storms and zero forward motion, they don't see a future. They see an anchor. And Capricorns don't do well with anchors. They want wings. But there's more to this story. Because what happens when someone doesn't just coast, but starts mocking everything the Capricorn values? What if they make fun of the very traits that define them? That kind of subtle disrespect isn't loud, but it's devastating. And that's exactly where we're going next. Reason number 9, mocking their seriousness. Capricorns know they're not everyone's idea of fun. They know they can come off as intense, focused, reserved, or even too much. But here's the thing, they've chosen to live this way. It's not a lack of personality, it's intentional. Their seriousness is not a defect, it's a commitment, a lifestyle, a survival strategy. They've heard the jokes. Why are you always working? Can't you just chill for once? You take everything so seriously. And maybe it's meant as a joke. Maybe the person saying it doesn't even mean to be critical. But to a Capricorn, those comments slowly carve out a feeling of not being seen, not being respected for who they truly are. You have to understand, many Capricorns grow up quickly. They're the kid taking on adult roles before they're ready. They're the teen with a savings plan, the young adult taking care of others, the friend who always has a backup plan. That seriousness didn't come from nowhere. It came from necessity. So when someone mocks that, when someone reduces their grounded energy to boring or uptight, it hits a nerve, a quiet one, a deep one. They'll laugh it off, maybe even agree with the joke just to keep the peace. But inside, they're reevaluating how much of themselves they can really share with you. Because if you can't understand why they work so hard, why they think long-term, why they sometimes say no to fun in favor of something more meaningful, are you really their person? Capricorns don't want praise, but they do want recognition. Recognition for their sacrifices, for their vision, for their values. When they're with someone who mocks the very traits they've worked hard to build, they start to detach. Not loudly, but steadily, emotionally, internally. And here's the thing, they don't want someone who tries to fix them by making them more relaxed or more spontaneous. They want someone who appreciates the fact that they're structured, that they take life seriously, that they find comfort in planning, purpose in discipline, and pride in their dedication. Because that seriousness you're teasing, that's the same energy that makes them reliable, that makes them loyal, that makes them the person you can lean on when everything else falls apart. They don't need someone who loosens them up. They need someone who sees the beauty in being solid. Which brings us directly to reason number 10. Financial irresponsibility, something that threatens the very foundation of that solid life a Capricorn works so hard to build. Capricorns are incredibly tuned in to the concept of stability. For them, money isn't about luxury. It's about security, safety, having options, being able to say no, being able to protect themselves and the people they care about. So when someone close to them is financially irresponsible, it doesn't just frustrate them, it creates stress on a cellular level. Let's break it down. Capricorn isn't judging someone for not being rich. They're not snobs. They don't expect you to have a trust fund, a six-figure salary, or a perfect credit score. But what they do need is a sense of financial self-awareness, intention, basic responsibility, spending wildly without thinking, living way beyond your means, racking up debt with no plan to address it, ignoring bills, prioritizing flashy things over essential ones, refusing to talk about money at all. These are red flags that make a Capricorn quietly, and sometimes immediately, start to question the relationship. Why? Because to them, finances aren't just numbers. They're a reflection of your mindset, your discipline, your ability to manage real life. And for a Capricorn, real life matters more than appearances ever will. They're planners. They think in decades, not weekends. So if you're constantly buying on impulse, dodging financial accountability, or refusing to save for the future, it feels like a direct threat to everything they're working toward. And here's where it gets real. Even if they love you, they won't tie their future to someone who lives like there's no tomorrow. Because here's what they've probably seen, maybe in their own family or in early life. What happens when there isn't a safety net, when bills pile up, when chaos replaces planning? They've seen how destructive it can be when someone refuses to handle the real, grounded, practical aspects of life. That's why they work so hard. That's why they worry about money even when they don't need to. It's not greed, it's a trauma response. So when you show them that you don't take financial responsibility seriously, that you don't think about consequences, that you don't have a plan, it feels like betrayal. Not betrayal of them necessarily, but betrayal of the values they hold most dear. Even in friendships, Capricorns can struggle to stay close with people who are financially reckless. If they see you constantly digging yourself into holes, borrowing and overspending and hoping things just work out, they'll start pulling back. Not because they think they're better than you, but because they don't want to carry your weight, emotionally or otherwise. And if you're in a relationship with a Capricorn, this becomes even more crucial. Because for them, love isn't separate from life, it is life. That means shared goals, shared realities, shared futures. If you're not aligned on how to build something stable together, that's a deal breaker. Here's the hard truth. Capricorns will not build their empire with someone who's too busy avoiding reality. They'll help, support, teach, advise, but they will not babysit. They will not bankroll someone's denial. And if they start to feel like they're the only one preparing for the future while you're stuck in the present, that's the moment they stop sharing theirs with you. Capricorns want someone who's solid, not perfect, but growing. Someone who can look at their financial life and say, okay, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be, and here's what I'm doing about it. They don't expect you to have it all together, but they do expect you to care. Because when you don't, they see that as a reflection of how seriously you take anything, your goals, your promises, your responsibilities, your partnership. Capricorns crave foundation. And when your choices threaten to crack that foundation, even unintentionally, they step away, quietly, and often for good. Both reason, number 9, and reason number 10, are rooted in the same core truth. Capricorns take life seriously because life is serious. And they want to share that life with people who understand what it means to build something that lasts. But even with all their structure and maturity, there are still lines you can't cross. And once crossed, there's no going back. The next 2 reasons, those are the ones that hurt the most, the kind of hurt that doesn't heal easily. Let's talk about them. Which brings us to reason number 11, disloyalty or disrespect. Capricorns don't give their trust easily. They observe first. They wait. They test. And when they finally let someone in, it means something. So if you betray that trust, even once, the damage is rarely repairable. Disloyalty doesn't have to mean cheating or outright betrayal. Sometimes it's smaller, quieter, but just as sharp. Talking behind their back, dismissing their feelings, siding with someone else just to avoid conflict. letting someone insult them without speaking up, telling other people their business, laughing at their pain instead of defending their name. To others, these things might seem minor, but to a Capricorn, they reveal everything. Because here's the thing, loyalty is how Capricorns feel safe, not just emotionally, spiritually. They need to know you'll protect what's sacred. That includes their story, their struggles, their boundaries, their truth. And when someone shows they won't, a switch flips. And when that switch flips, the wall goes up, the door shuts, and there's no long, drawn-out conversation. Just space, just silence, just absence. Capricorns may be slow to trust, but they're even slower to retrust. If you've betrayed them once, they'll never look at you the same way again. They may be civil, they may forgive, but they'll never forget the feeling of realizing you weren't who they thought you were. That's the worst kind of loss for them. Not the relationship itself, but the loss of belief. Belief in your character, belief in your word, belief that you'd choose them even when it wasn't easy. And here's the deeper cut. Capricorns expect to be the one holding it together. They've accepted that role in life, but when they realize that someone they counted on isn't standing with them, or worse, is standing against them, it shakes something foundational. Disloyalty doesn't just hurt, it changes them. It's the moment they stop sharing their truth, the moment they stop reaching out, the moment they rewrite the entire story of what you meant to them. Because Capricorn loyalty is fierce, but once it's gone forever. Now let's talk about reason number 12, cutting corners and sloppy work. Because if disloyalty is the crack in the foundation, then this one is what makes the whole structure collapse. Capricorns respect the grind. They don't need genius, they don't need perfection, but they demand effort, real, consistent, focused effort. They know what it takes to build something. They've spent their whole lives doing it, often alone, often under pressure. And when they see someone phoning it in, half-assing a commitment, or cheating the system to get ahead, it makes their skin crawl. It doesn't matter if it's a project, a promise, or a relationship. If you're not putting in the work, they'll notice, and they'll lose respect for you quickly. Capricorns live by a very clear code. You earn what you keep. So when someone tries to bypass the process, whether that's slacking off and expecting praise, copying others' work, making excuses instead of improvements, or taking shortcuts with no regard for quality, it offends them on a soul level. And the kicker? Most of the time they won't say anything, they'll just pull back. Because to a Capricorn, if you're not taking pride in your work, you probably won't take pride in them either. If you cut corners in one area, they assume you'll do it in others. And they're not interested in building anything. Not a friendship, not a love story, not a career, with someone who's constantly looking for the easy way out. Effort is everything, not success, not awards, not perfection, effort. They love people who try, who care, who show up with intention even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. When you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, a Capricorn notices, and they respect you for it. But when you choose the easy wrong, the selfish shortcut, the minimum effort, the lazy excuse, they also notice, and they won't unsee it. Cutting corners isn't just about being lazy. It's about values, integrity, grit. And if you don't value those things, a Capricorn knows deep down that you won't value them. It all ties back to one core truth. Capricorns want to build with people who build with care. People who take pride in what they do, no matter how small. People who do things the right way, not because someone's watching, but because that's just who they are. So if you think no one notices your shortcuts, think again. A Capricorn always does. And over time, that repeated sloppiness, that repeated lack of effort becomes a language they no longer respond to. You could have talent, charm, chemistry, potential. None of it matters if you don't try. They've been carrying too much for too long to invest in someone who won't carry their share. And that's the through line between reason number 11 and reason number 12, lack of character. Whether it's betrayal or just laziness disguised as casualness, Capricorns pick up on energy. And when that energy says, I don't really care about you, about the process, about the bond, they walk quietly, without drama, without a big announcement. Because at the end of the day, Capricorns don't just want loyalty, they want people who match their values, who put in the work, who protect what matters, who show up fully when it counts. And if you can't do that, they won't argue, they won't beg, they'll just vanish. But here's the beauty. If you do bring loyalty, if you do bring effort, a Capricorn will ride for you harder than anyone you've ever met. They'll back you, build with you, and believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. Because when you earn a Capricorn's loyalty, it's a bond for life, the kind you don't find twice. Now that we've gone through all 12 reasons, the ones that quietly push Capricorns to disconnect, the behaviors that slowly kill trust and respect, it's time to turn the mirror around. Because whether you're a Capricorn yourself or someone who loves one, there's one more thing to do. So let's take a breath. We've just gone through 12 reasons that can drive a Capricorn absolutely crazy. 12 behaviors that slowly, sometimes silently push them away. And what's striking isn't how difficult Capricorns are. It's how consistent they are. How clear their values really are once you understand what makes them tick. From wasting their time and showing no ambition, to bringing emotional chaos or taking shortcuts. Every trigger we covered has something in common. It threatens the foundation they've worked so hard to build. Capricorns aren't easily shaken. They're not impulsive. They don't burn bridges for sport, but they do walk away, often without warning, when something feels fundamentally unsafe, unfair, or simply unsustainable. They need people in their life who value things like loyalty, effort, maturity, discipline, and emotional responsibility. Not perfection, not status, just substance. Because they're not here for drama. They're not here for games. They're here to build. And if you've made it to this point in the video, that means you're either a Capricorn yourself or someone who wants to understand them on a deeper level. And that says something about you. You care. You want to grow. You're paying attention. And that's exactly the kind of energy Capricorn respects. So now, we want to hear from you. Drop down into the comments and tell us, if you're a Capricorn, which of these 12 reasons hit hardest for you? What's one thing people do that makes you instantly go cold? If you've ever dated or been close to a Capricorn, did this list explain a lot? What did we miss? And if you're trying to reconnect with a Capricorn you pushed away, what are you going to do differently? Seriously, we read every single comment, and we want to see this space flooded with your stories, insights, and truths. Capricorns don't open up easily, but maybe this is your chance to say what's been on your mind. And while you're here, don't just click away. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. This is Secret of the Zodiac, and we're here to help you understand every sign, deeply, honestly, and without the fluff. Give this video a like if you saw yourself in it, or if you recognize someone else. Check out our other videos after this one. We've got full breakdowns on all the signs, including love compatibility, hidden traits, and what each zodiac really wants. And now something really important, something that helps this channel keep going every single day. If this video helped you, if it opened your eyes, made you feel seen, or just gave you a new perspective, please consider supporting us by clicking the Super Thanks button just below the video. It's that little heart with the $sign. And yes, it's a way for you to send a small donation to help us keep producing this kind of content daily. We're a small team doing this from the heart, and your support helps cover research, editing, production, and everything that goes into making each video better than the last. Even a tiny amount goes a long way, and honestly, it means the world. So if you want more videos like this, deeper, more honest, more real, hit that super thanks and help us grow this community. You're not just watching a video, you're part of something. Capricorns are loyal, wise, and one of the most misunderstood signs in the zodiac. But with the right people around them, they thrive, they shine, they build legacies. Let's be those people. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring, and we'll see you in the next one.